STEM literacy, the ability to understand and apply concepts from science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in order to solve complex problems, is an increasingly more important aspect in today's world. We rely on technology and science more so today than ever before in human history. According to credible sources that I will soon share, America is already seeing fairly large numbers of STEM illiterate citizens. This lack of STEM literacy in America can lead to poor decision-making about STEM topics including climate change, genetically modified foods, and childhood vaccinations. If we don't educate our society and change our views on important STEM topics, America could see a scientific regression. Whether or not you agree with me, and I realize this video may get a lot of dislikes, I'm open to discussion. This is my conclusion, and I urge the viewer to do their own objective research. First, I'd like to look into the American population and compare their beliefs to the beliefs of relevant scientists in the field concerning the topic at hand. This way, we can gauge how literate the population is. First, we'll check the average American's understanding of basic geology. Knowing that a large portion of Americans hold the creationist belief, I decided this issue was pertinent in the list of STEM topic fields. Taking into account those working in the relevant fields of earth and life sciences, there are about 480,000 scientists, but only about 700 believe in creation science or consider it a valid theory. Comparing these numbers received from the National Science Foundation and those from the Gallup poll, this leaves about 0.15% of all scientists in relevant fields being creationist scientists. In the view of a young Earth, we live in a society where a whopping 0.15% of creationist scientists and 42% of the American population still believe that the Earth is only 6,000 years old, versus the 99.85% of rationalist scientists that think otherwise. I'd like to question how this is even possible, considering the infinitesimally small portion of scientists that hold this belief, but I suspect there is a great deal of religious motivation. The next STEM topic will deal with genetically modified foods. I will begin to use more of the polls centered around the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Don't just assume that I'm being biased when choosing my numbers, however. The American Association for Advancement of Science publishes Science magazine, one of the most widely circulated peer-reviewed scientific journals in the world. It is an open member organization that brings together a wide segment of the scientific community. So, on to the results. Where 86% of scientists believe GMOs are safe to eat, 57% of Americans believe that GMOs are generally unsafe to eat. This is utterly abysmal. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson puts it the best. Take it away, Neil.
I'm amazed how much objection genetically modified foods are receiving from the public. It smacks of the fear factor that exists at every new emergent science where people don't fully understand it or don't fully know or embrace its consequences and so therefore reject it. What most people don't know, but they should, is that practically every food you buy in a store for consumption by humans is genetically modified food. There are no wild, seedless watermelons. There's no wild cows. There's no long stem roses growing in the wild, although we don't eat roses. You list all the fruit and all the vegetables and ask yourself, is there a wild counterpart to this? If there is, it's not as large, it's not as sweet, it's not as juicy, and it has way more seeds in it. We have systematically genetically modified all the foods, the vegetables and animals that we have eaten ever since we cultivated them. It's called artificial selection. That's how we genetically modified them. So now we can do it in a lab, all of a sudden you're going to complain? If you're the complainer type, go back and eat the apples that grow wild. You know something? They're this big and they're tart. They're not sweet like red delicious apples. We manufactured those. That's a genetic modification. Do you realize silk cannot be produced in the wild? The silkworm, as we cultivate it, has no wild counterpart because it would die in the wild. So there's not even any silk anymore. So we are creating and modifying the biology of the world to serve our needs. I don't have a problem with that because we've been doing that for tens of thousands of years. So chill out.
Okay, merci.
Next, we'll reveal a controversial topic, which shouldn't even be controversial at all, because there's no controversy in academia on the subject. instead of using the numbers of scientists gathered from the Pew Research Center, I decided to use NASA's many cited and peer-reviewed papers that deal with the amount of active climatologists. In a moment, we'll discuss the evidence from NASA's website. So, to start, 97% of actively publishing climatologists believe in climate change. More so, the climatologists hold the belief it is due to human activity. Keep in mind, belief and faith are not synonymous. Climatologists, just like all scientists, follow evidence. On to the beliefs of the American populace. 23% of Americans don't believe in climate change. Out of the 77% who do believe climate change is real, 50% hold the idea that climate change isn't responsible to human activity. This leaves 61% being scientifically illiterate in climate change, holding the belief that it doesn't exist or that we can't do anything about climate change. This is a scary amount, considering this is one of the biggest STEM issues in our generation. Don't just take my word for it, though. Let's hop onto NASA's website and review the compiled information. Upon following the link that I will leave in the description below, you will be greeted by a graph which represents temperature data from 4 international science institutions, all showing rapid warming in the past few decades, with the last decade being the warmest on record. Why is this important, you ask? All 4 are independent, and all 4 cross-confirm each other. The planet is getting warmer at an exponential rate. If you scroll down, you'll come across a segment that says, multiple studies published in peer-reviewed science journals show that 97% of more actively publishing climatologists agree. Climate warming trends over the past century are very likely due to human activities. In addition, most of the leading scientific organizations worldwide have issued public statements endorsing this position, all of which I will now stream across the screen. Oh wait, you thought I was done. No. We're going to streamline the 200 other scientific organizations in favor of climate change. Alright, I digress. We still have more topics to visit, so on to the next STEM issue. This next STEM topic will deal with childhood vaccinations and whether or not they are safe. To begin, 86% of the scientific community believes childhood vaccinations are safe, versus the 32% of Americans that believe childhood vaccinations aren't safe. This is a scary amount of people. I mean, if you don't vaccinate your child, this could lead to outbreaks of diseases that I'm sure you wouldn't want your child to contract. We have a preponderance amount of evidence that points to vaccines being safe and how they've positively affected the population. You'd have to almost go out of your way to ignore the insurmountable amount of evidence. Just look at the statistics. Look at the public announcements from the CDC. If that's not enough to convince you, then I'm worried you might cry conspiracy. Oh wait. Never mind. On to the next topic. This next topic will deal with evolution. I already discussed previously about the young Earth theory, so this is related, however not synonymous. As much as the small portion of creationist scientists want you to believe that evolutionists deal with the age of the Earth, that's absurd. Evolution deals with the change in species over successive generations, not the age of the Earth. Anyways, on to the issue at hand. Where 98% of scientists believe humans evolved over time, 35% of Americans believe that humans didn't evolve over time. Clearly this poses a problem. You, the average viewer, do realize that evolution is the basis for all contemporary biology, right? The fields of phylogenetics, cell biology, population biology, zoology, ornithology, herpetology, field biology, theoretical biology, experimental evolution, paleontology, evolutionary ecology, and evolutionary developmental biology, just to name a few, all rely on evolution. Without evolution, nothing in biology or medicine would make any sense. It's a scary thought, America. STEM occupations are projected to grow by 17% from 2008 to 2018, compared to 9.8% growth for non-STEM occupations. Taking into account of the statistics I just shared, I can pragmatically say this is a recipe for disaster. Reviewing the already major gaps in the beliefs of Americans versus the scientific community in topics of climate change, childhood vaccinations, evolution, the 6,000-year-old Earth belief, and genetically modified foods, there's only disaster in store for the future of STEM fields in America unless we educate ourselves and learn to think critically. This means demanding evidence and asking questions. A more STEM-literate society intuitively elects STEM-literate officials to represent them, which in turn promotes more innovation where science and technology advance at an exponential pace. Speaking of STEM-literate officials, Donald Trump seems to be very popular among the American population as of late. Even though I don't like to go into politics much, I couldn't help but notice what seems to be Trump's exhausted grip on reality. Here are some of Mr. Trump's tweets and Facebook posts that are fairly recent. To think, this man might be president one day keeps me awake at night. I also find it funny how he brags about having a high IQ, and yet fails to comprehend the majority of STEM issues facing America. Pseudoscience is usually politically or religiously motivated. As shown earlier, creation science already seeks to misrepresent evolution. I'd like to show a few more clips.
My friends, the information that you are about to witness from all of my years of research is the most important. It's been hidden in plain view the entire time. This is the ultimate secret, and it's about to be exposed.
Well, boys and girls, put your hand up if you've heard of the word evolution. Oh boy, I think just about everyone puts their hands up. Hands down. Put your hand up if you've heard that dinosaurs lived millions of years ago. Dear, oh dear. Hands down. You know, I think just about everybody in the world has heard those things. I don't believe that dinosaurs lived millions of years ago, and I certainly don't believe that you came from ape-like creatures or anything like that. Who should you always trust first, God or the scientist? God, and I want you to remember that.
I'm also looking at you, Jim Carrey. As you can see, celebrities aren't safe from the grip of pseudoscience either. If Jim, Trump, and the rest were STEM literate, they wouldn't be spreading this kind of bullshit. And to think these gentlemen are actually swaying people's decisions on these kind of topics is a horrifying thought. Remember, STEM literacy is the ability to understand and apply concepts from science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in order to solve complex problems, and isn't reserved for those in STEM fields. STEM literacy asks that you demand evidence when trying to draw your conclusions to form your opinion, not just accepting information. You need to set aside your emotions and study a topic objectively. Too often have I seen people sway their opinions in favor of pseudoscience. Where pseudoscientific conclusions are often derived from political or religious motivations, in which the scientific method is manipulated and used to change the opinions of a person, science deals with raw data, where there is no room for emotions or interpretations. One must subjectively research their field of study. Great pains are taken to mitigate bias, and those who are found to have bias manipulate an outcome have their degrees revoked and are labeled as frauds. Watching out for pseudoscience and thinking critically and objectively can combat STEM illiteracy. A more STEM-literate society intuitively elects STEM-literate officials to represent them, which in turn promotes a more innovation, where science and technology advance at an exponential pace. If you, the viewer, could take away but one ideal from this video, it would be the objective critical thinking process that demands evidence and asks questions. I ask that you change your mind when presented with the right evidence.